Hi, this is Mike Dierks, Regional Home Missionary Coordinator for the Presbytery of Ohio. It's December of 2021, and today we're speaking with Ben Ward, who's leading the Bible study in Sharon, Pennsylvania. So first, Ben, welcome. Give us a little background on where Sharon is and remind the viewers about this ministry.
Yeah, thank you for having me on, and what a great opportunity to talk about some of the things that the Lord is doing here in Western Pennsylvania. The work that's going on here in Sharon, Pennsylvania is part of an outreach effort by the church where I am pastor, Covenant OPC in Grove City. I labor there with Jeremy Jones, co-pastoring together. Uh, the work there in Sharon is about 35 minutes west of where we live here in Grove City. And it was started because a few families who came to and were members of our church in Grove City lived out in the Sharon area and wanted to see a work started out there as well, a church planting work. There was a family who was out there, living out there for a long time, who wanted to see a work begin, who were inviting people. That family is no longer there. They moved away some time ago, definitely long before I got to Grove City. But the other person who really wanted to see a work started there was Alice Cornelio. At the risk of embarrassing her, she is just a fantastic woman, older single lady in our church, who is a wonderful evangelist for the Lord, has a heart for church planting and seeing people won to Jesus Christ. And so, even after that initial family left, Alice continued to desire to see a work planted in the Sharon area, and has been just very zealous at inviting people for many years to whatever it is our church has been doing in the area. So for a number of years, I think starting in the mid 2000s, around 2005, there was a Bible study that was out there with a few families, and people would come from Grove City also to interact with some of the people who were there as well. In around 2013, worship services were started on a Sunday. It was 3 p.m.s on Sundays. There was not a ton of traction from that worship service there. Usually it was mostly people who were coming from Grove City to the worship service, and maybe one or two or three other people from the community in Sharon who would come, usually because Alice had invited them. But in the Lord's providence, the COVID pandemic began in March of 2020 in these parts here, and along with many other churches and places of worship, the church where we were meeting in Sharon was not allowing visitors. It was an Episcopal church and had totally shut down for a period of months when COVID hit. And so we were trying to reevaluate as a session what the ministry would look like going forward. It didn't seem to us that the way that we were doing things at that point was particularly fruitful. And so around August of 2020, the session decided to relaunch the work there as a Bible study. So before, we had been calling the preaching station, the worship service, Living Hope Fellowship. We continue to use that name, Living Hope Fellowship, and it is on our website. But that's where we're at right now. We've been having a Bible study. It's been on Fridays since August. I've been teaching. First, I taught an extended lesson or series through Calvin Cummings' book, Confessing Christ, just for a long time, though, very basic things. Lots of the people who come to the Sharon work are either not Christians, or if they are Christians, they have not been in churches for a long time and have very little Christian instruction. So I want to make sure to be as carefully explaining all things that I'm talking about in the Christian faith as much as possible. So for a while that was weekly. Around the turn of the new year into 2021, we decided to make that every other week. And there had been sporadic attendance, semi-regular attendance for some time. The wonderful thing was, it did seem like of all the semi-regular attenders, if we could just get them all there on a Friday, it would really actually be something. And in the Lord's providence, he did do that. In the summer of 2021 here, the group has been much more regular in its attendance. People are more desirous and hungry, I think, to hear the word. And there's been a bunch of fellowship also, which has been really encouraging to see. People will stay upwards of an hour after the actual Bible study is completed. Um, at around 7:30 on first and third Fridays, and that's just a really encouraging thing to see.
That's good. So how many are currently attending when you have the full house, as it were?
When we have a full house, it's usually between about 12, maybe even 14 people. If it's totally full, it's probably about 14 people. And the really neat thing about this is that it is almost entirely people that are from the local Sharon Hermitage area. There is almost no one now that comes from Grove City. Um, Although people are starting to come now. I think the Lord has put it on a number of people's heart to come and try to help disciple some of the people who are coming to the Bible study. But almost all of the people are either from the Sharon Hermitage area or Eastern Ohio, which we're right on the border. I mean, we're just a couple blocks from the border with Ohio, where we meet. So that's
So
really encouraging.
give us some examples of what you're doing kind of right now to reach out, connect into the community.
Yeah, I mean, the Bible study is the big thing, and the way that it initially had people coming was through invitations by Alice, who I had mentioned before. She meets a number of people just throughout the community with her job, and so she's always inviting new people. One of the really exciting things, though, in the last 6 months or so, is that people that Alice has invited who have become regular attenders are now also inviting people that they know. So it used to be in months and even years past that Alice is one of the only contacts in the Sharon area that we had consistently there, and would be the only person sort of able to make those contacts in the community and invite people. But now these other people who are becoming more excited about the Bible study and what might be going on there have also started to invite people as well. And some of those people have also become regular attenders.
Okay. And you've got a website, correct? And
yes, that's right. Living Hope Fellowship, Living Hope Sharon. So if you just Google Living Hope Sharon, it's the very first thing that pops up. And we have flyers and things like that. Before COVID hit, my wife and I would come out here once a week and we would hand out flyers and things to people just in the community. After COVID hit, we sort of stopped going into people's businesses if we were going to do business there, so to speak. But those sorts of things are going to start happening again. And there's also a number of festivals, like community festivals and things that go on there in Sharon. And I'm hopeful that we'll be able to have a booth for Living Hope and be able to invite people and share the gospel with some of those community events as well.
Well, good. Yeah. And as the statistics show, the majority of people come because they were invited. It's not the other things are good to do, but the invitation, and that's great to hear that it's not just Alice now, that the others are starting, and that just shows that they're embracing what's going on. That's good.
Yeah.
So as you look into 2022 and beyond, and we know God's will is something we can't fathom, but under ordinary providence, regular providence, where do you see the group heading over the next year or so?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the long-term goal, the session's goal is that if the Lord would bless this, that it would become a church plant and a congregation of the OPC. If we're talking just over the next year, I would like to finish out this series in Mark's Gospel that I've been teaching for a while now. And even while that's going on, to have some membership classes, even with some of the people who are attending the Bible study on a regular basis, who seem to be ready to make a profession of faith or ready to join a church, and have them either join our church here, Covenant in Grove City, or there's another OP not too far away. If that's closer for them, then have them join that church as well, while we continue to do the work there in Sharon, and hope that the Lord will plant a church there. Again, another thing in the near future, I'd like for us to be able to do some of these festivals. They have a big Easter festival, big summer festival, and a few other sort of regular community events in Sharon. So I'd like to see us participate in those kinds of things, not just me being there at a booth, but maybe some of the other local people who come to the Bible study and want to see this work get started, have them be there as someone very close by that people could follow up with.
Well, very good. Very good. All right. So as we wrap up, how can the presbytery, the churches in the presbytery, pray for Living Hope Fellowship?
Yeah, a few things there. One would be that the discipleship of the people who are coming to the Bible study would be fruitful, that it would not just be sort of me teaching the Gospel of Mark and people taking that and saying, that's nice. What we've got here is sort of a nice thing that's going on. And then maybe nothing else sort of happens from that, right? But that people would become excited about the idea of being the church, becoming a congregation of the OPC. So that those kinds of membership classes, interviews, and those sorts of things, that those would be fruitful and that people would really start to develop a sense that we want to be a church together. It does seem like people are really starting to own this as a group, growing together in love and friendship as well. So just to see that coalesce into the desire to become a church. Another thing would be to begin to perhaps identify some potential leaders for a future. I mean, this would be a very long-term goal, but future leaders, officers in the church. One thing that we do have, it's a kind of an interesting dynamic about this group, is it's almost entirely single people, whether that's the regular visitors or the semi-regular visitors. Almost none of them are married or have kids, or if they're older, their kids are sort of long out of the house. So maybe for some families as well, that would be a wonderful thing for us to pray for. Although we love having the many singles that we do, I think that's probably unique for an OP work. So yeah, those would be some things. And then wisdom as the session seeks to find maybe the best way logistically to plan ahead and turn this, so to speak, from a Bible study into a preaching station and then to a church plant. It's something that the session here, we don't really have much in the way of experience with, at least not firsthand experience. So we would love for some wisdom from the Lord in how to go about this. But we're really encouraged as a group as well.
Well, it's encouraging. Thank you for the update. And I know we've talked about this many times at Presbytery, so it's just good to get a little deeper into what's going on. And churches, as you're watching, remember to pray for the group as they really go from kind of a group to forming into a relational body, we'll call it, and then from there into church expression. The families would engage, leaders would emerge, and as you said, wisdom for the session as they guide and oversee this work. So thank you, Ben, and I really appreciate your time. And God bless you. Have a great Christmas.
Yeah, thank you. You too, Mike.